So in this video, I'm going to be talking about exercise whilst pregnant, what you can do, what you can't do, my own exercise experience, and what you might need to consider if you like exercising and you want to get pregnant, or if you're already pregnant and you just don't know where to start. So just for some context, I am an exercise specialist. My background is clinical exercise, and I've been working in the industry for over 8 years. Although I don't kind of promote kind of fitness on this channel, it's very much my own journey and a very much a lifestyle channel. But I do think it's really important just to talk about this because there is so much misleading information out there. No way. So firstly, I'm going to break it up into my first and second trimester, and I'm just going to talk about it up to there because I haven't reached my third trimester. This is my first baby, and I just don't know what I feel like when I'm exercising, and I don't want to kind of give you any advice. I mean, I'm not giving advice. This is very much like my experience and what I have read about from a research perspective. But I'm only going to be focusing on my first and second trimester. So I found exercising in my first trimester extremely hard, mainly because I was so tired and so nauseous. And they were the two main reasons why exercising in my first trimester was so hard. And it's just not something I thought about before I got pregnant. I thought, no, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to exercise throughout my pregnancy. It's going to be easy. I'm going to be able to maintain what I used to do. No, I couldn't. I was very inconsistent for a few weeks, mainly because I'd turn up to the gym and be like, ugh, I don't want to do this. Or I'd get there and I'd just be in and out of the toilet thinking that I'm going to throw up. I did throw up during my first and second trimester. It's very much reduced now. I only throw up maybe like once every 3 weeks. But I had much more regular nausea and vomiting. And that does kind of play on your mind when you're exercising because you're like, I don't want to throw up in front of all these strangers in the gym. So be aware of that and be aware of the fact that nausea and fatigue will be a huge barrier to exercise in your first trimester. There's also a massive change in your energy levels. What you were once used to completely changes. And I think that as a result of that, you're less inclined to exercise, or you have less motivation to exercise because you don't know the feeling of this. This feeling is so new to you that exercise just in general feels so much harder than it ever once was. That also kind of links very much into like lack of motivation. Now, the lack of motivation may come from fatigue. It may come from lack of energy levels. It may come from the nausea. It may just come from the fact that you're pregnant and you just can't be bothered. But I very much I went at least once a week, going from 4 times a week. And in my first, I want to say between like 8 to 12 weeks was really hard, really, really hard. Now I'm training 4 times a week. It's fine. I'm exercising. I will go through the second trimester in a bit more detail in a second. But it does change throughout your pregnancy and it's not forever. So I think that's a really important thing to note is you're not going to feel this rubbish forever and you will get back in the gym. I am a very avid exerciser. I love exercising. I love going to the gym. I've always done it for the last kind of 20 years. But if you're somebody who's looking to start exercising throughout pregnancy, you can, it just has to be a little low intensity. You know, like I was used to very high intensity training. I'm still managing very high intensity training now in my second trimester. I had to really strip that back in my first trimester, but now I'm back up to that high intensity level. Just because I've got my energy back. I'm not feeling as nauseous as I did. My motivation's there. I don't have as many barriers to exercise. So I'm a big believer in you can pretty much do what you can in your in your pregnancy than compared to what you did in your first before you. I'm not making any sense. Sorry, let me start that again. what I'm trying to say is what you did before you got pregnant is okay during your pregnancy. And it's also person dependent. So, for example, everybody's pregnancy is different. So you may not feel up to doing what you used to do and may want to strip it back. However, you are absolutely allowed to do what you did. You shouldn't be just being like, no, I'm pregnant, I don't have to exercise as much. Wrong. Not just from a personal perspective, but from a scientific perspective, that is the information that is being pushed out at the moment. And I am going to kind of debunk some myths around exercise at a later stage in this video. Another really important note is I am still fatigued in my second trimester. It's different. It's a different level of fatigue. It's not one that kind of completely immobilizes me and that I'm on the sofa and I'm not doing anything. I can't even do chores. I can do chores. I can do all of that. It is very much mental fatigue. One thing after the other. I've got gallstones. I've got nausea. I've got fatigue. I've been sick for months. Like all of that. It's more of a mental fatigue where you're like, I can't add going to the gym on top of all of this. And another thing that nobody ever told me before I got pregnant was the level of breathlessness that you experience. Now, I only started to feel breathlessness in my second trimester, and that's really affected my exercise ability because I'll be doing something cardio based or quite energy inducing, and my breathlessness will literally take my breath away. So I've had to really focus on that and breathing, and I found that really hard, and recovery is much slower. Whereas maybe I used to do like 5 burpees and then my recovery would take 10 seconds. Now it might take me 1 or 2 minutes. So I'm there like for ages. So that is something that you need to be aware of. The breathlessness is normal. I am also exploring the fact that my breathlessness might be also linked to low red blood cell count, which is something that my mum experienced during pregnancy. I do have low hemoglobin levels. I'm going to talk to my midwife about that in about 2 weeks. So yeah, I don't know yet, but it could be linked to that as well. So lying on your back is also another thing to consider. I felt fine lying on my back throughout my first trimester. My second trimester, about week 19, I couldn't lie on my back anymore. One, because I started to feel the pressure on the vena cava, which is basically, don't quote me on this, but the vein that transports like oxygen to the baby. And it's a really horrible like tummy ache feeling. And I had that at nighttime because I found that I was sleeping on my back at night unintentionally, but I would just roll onto my back. Now that feeling is horrible. And also anxiety inducing because you're like, am I hurting the baby? Am I affecting their development? Like all of those things. So I have very much been very conscious of lying on my back since then. And secondly, the fact that it's really hard to get up in your mid to late second trimester. Getting up is not easy anymore. So whereas you once used to just be able to just like throw yourself up, that's a lot harder now just because of the pressure of your stomach and the lack of strength around your abdominal area. So just be aware of those things. So if you like bench pressing and any kind of like upper body stuff, glute bridges, all of that, you may have to reconsider the technique that you use. There are ways around it. You can use upright machines. You could put some cushions behind your shoulders and then you're lifting your body up a little bit, and you could use some sort of platform. There are ways around it. So you can still do the exercises, but just lying completely flat on your back can be a little bit uncomfortable. It also can put pressure on your vena cava. The next thing is relaxing. So I injured myself in my second trimester. I think it was the beginning of my second trimester. I was in the gym, I was doing a dumbbell snatch, and I felt the most excruciating pain ever. Not as bad as gallstone pain. And I couldn't walk for a day basically because what had happened is I think I'd moved my sacroiliac joint. I don't really know. It's my sacroiliac area. I have had an injury there before, and I think because of the relaxing, I just completely like pinged it. And for about 24 to 48 hours, I was in a lot of pain. And I think it was related to the relaxing because usually that wouldn't happen. And lastly is now that I'm in my second trimester, I've really started to focus on my pelvic floor health. It's not something I've been really conscious about until reading up about the fact that you need a strong and flexible pelvic floor. Now, I know I've got a strong pelvic floor just from having smear tests and the nurses telling me that, but I don't think I've got a flexible pelvic floor because I've never done anything to promote flexibility in that area. I've started to look into what I can do. I've got maybe 6 stretches that I do as much as possible, maybe every other night, maybe every 3 nights, to stretch the pelvic floor. So that's a child's pose, pigeon pose, deep squat, lunge, stretch. So the lunge stretch, not a lunge stretch, butterfly position, and there's one, I don't know how to describe it, but you're like foot's out to the side, your legs out to the side and your foot's tucked into your thigh, and then you lean forward and round, and that's supposed to help open up your pelvic floor and just make it more elastic. And that's really good for birth as well as kind of your post-birth recovery. So I have been focusing on my pelvic floor exercises. I'm not a pelvic floor expert, but I've done some research for myself just to optimize my birthing experience, especially because I want it to be unmedicated. So I'm doing everything I possibly can to put myself in the best position. So now I'm going to be debunking some common myths around exercise for and during pregnancy. And I'm going to post the research that you can kind of refer back to in the description below as well, so that you can refer back to that if you want some more information. I am just touching upon each point. So if you do want to do some more research and make up your own mind, then please do. But this is all stuff that has been recommended and that it is research based. Something that I found when talking to midwives is if they trained 25 years ago, their knowledge is not up to date, and the information that they are giving you around exercise is now just wrong. So please be aware of that when you are considering exercise and you're talking to midwives. You cannot trust all the midwives. As much as I'd love to be yes, midwives are great, and they are great, their information's out of date. And because their information's out of date and they may not update their knowledge base, they're giving out misinformation. So just be really conscious of that. Go and do your own research. I've had to do a lot of that myself. So number 1 is that you should stop doing exercise, full stop. That is such a lie. As soon as you turn pregnant, one of the best things you can do is continue the exercise that you were doing before you became pregnant. I feel really good for it. I feel really healthy for it. You need to stay active. If you think about it from caveman perspective, they didn't stop exercising because they needed to hunt for food. They needed to move for safety. They did all of those things throughout pregnancy, and we are here today. So it's really important that we consider that kind of ancestral background of pregnancy. Pregnancy and exercise are super safe and actually encouraged. Another myth is that you can't exercise if you didn't exercise before you were pregnant. You can do some sort of exercise. It shouldn't be intense. You shouldn't be going from not exercising at all to running marathons during pregnancy, ludicrous. Walking, swimming, yoga, light yoga, pregnancy yoga ideally, all of those things are really, really good for you to just keep your body as strong as it can be during pregnancy. So make sure that you are moving regularly. You're not living sedentary. Sedentary living is the worst thing you can do, because you're not moving you need that blood flow for the baby. You need your joint health. You need all of that, because when you go to give birth, your body is going to be doing all of the work. Another way of thinking about it is your contractions. Contractions are a way that your body is naturally pushing the baby out of your body. You can optimize those contractions by doing strength-based exercises, because you're improving the muscle density in those areas, and those contractions are much more efficient. So we do some reading about that. I have. It's really interesting. Another myth is that you should keep your BPM below 140. Wrong. Everybody's different. Everybody's fitness level is different. Everybody's blood pressure is different. Everybody's resting heart rate is different. All of those things will impact that statement. And as long as you can talk throughout exercise, you should be fine. So do that talking test, have a comfortable conversation with somebody, and you should be all good. Something that really upsets me is the fact that people tell you shouldn't lift weights while you're pregnant. Wrong. Like, so wrong. Your body is getting ready for some of the most energy fatiguing, extensive, intense exercise of its life. You need to train your body for exercise. You need to train your body for giving birth. So exercise is a really big part of that. And weightlifting is really important because you're maintaining your muscle mass, you're promoting muscle mass growth. Another element to that is just be really careful about kind of like max rep range. So, or if you're looking into like 1 rep maxes, you don't want to be doing 100 kilo deadlift if you can only do 1 rep of that. Like, you're going to be holding your breath, it's going to make you dizzy. I don't know if it's not safe. I can't make that suggestion because I don't know, but I would just say stay away from that. You also don't want to do that when you're pregnant because you don't have that energy. You don't. So I had a midwife appointment, and it was not my usual midwife because my usual midwife was unavailable. And I can't remember even how she got onto this subject, but she was saying how I shouldn't do any abdominal exercises. And I was like, in my head, like, that's not true. Anyway, she was like saying, yeah, you like don't do anything at all because you want your muscles to heal after you've had the baby. You want them to go rejoin each other, explaining all of this stuff. And I was like, I know that's wrong. Like, I've done the research because I didn't know if I could do abdominal exercises. You can't really do crunches. 1, because it's really intense, but 2, you don't want to do crunches. You don't have that strength there. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable. It puts too much pressure on that area. Yeah, like, just don't do crunches. But you should be doing abdominal exercises, things like planks. I'm doing kneeling planks. You can be doing like pelvic floor abdominal exercises, pelvic tilts. Light abdominal work is important because you want to be keeping that muscle toning for when you're giving birth, and also to encourage recovery post-birth. So do your research. Like, as I said, I'm not an expert, but this is all what I've read about and what the current science is teaching. So please look into that, and don't just listen to any midwife that tells you that you shouldn't be doing any abdominal exercises. Ludicrous. Another thing that people say is that you shouldn't run whilst you're pregnant. I also don't agree with this. There's lots of research saying that this is wrong. There are marathon runners who are pregnant who there are marathon runners before they're pregnant who continue to run marathons whilst they're pregnant. Now, I'm not going to be running a marathon because I never ran marathons before I was pregnant. But if I wanted to run, I know that I could. It's just not something I wanted to do whilst being pregnant. I don't like how breathless I get. I don't like how tired I am. I don't feel like I'm running very efficiently. So I've avoided running whilst being pregnant just because it's not an enjoyable experience for me. But if you're a runner and you become pregnant, it should be fine. You just listen to your body and you do what feels right for you as an individual. So they are just some myths around exercise. Please go and do your own research. As I've said, I really want to reiterate that. It's up to you. It's your body. You have to make these decisions for what's right for you. I listen to my body. I'm very intuitive when it comes to making decisions based off how I feel. So, yeah, I hope that's kind of given you an idea as to what you can and can't be doing during pregnancy. I hope that it does encourage you to exercise during pregnancy. I do have a stretch video that you can follow along for kind of pregnancy birth prep that I'm doing, because I want to just make sure that my pelvic area is optimized for birth. And you can have a look at that on one of my videos. I will try and tag that in the description below. And if you do have any questions, just put them in the comments. As I said, no expert, but this is a lot of research and my own experience being pregnant and being somebody who loves to exercise.